Is it still Halloween? All right, we're going to look at dial calipers today. So to start off with, I have a dial calipers right here, and I'm going to show you how to use these. Dial calipers are the most common versatile use or tool for precision measuring, and there are 4 types of measurements we're going to take a look at. So they are used to perform measurements of outside diameter or object thickness on the outside of an object, on the inside of an object, a step, and a hole. I'll show you all of these. So measuring the outside faces, if I want to see how far it is from this face to this face, then I simply open up the calipers and I can squeeze them together, and then I'll have a measurement here. I'll show you exactly how to read this in a bit. So that's another example of measuring the outside diameter of an object. If you want to do inside diameter, let's say I want to measure to see the inside diameter of this hole. So I stick these little points, and it shows it on your screen there too, right inside here, and then pull it apart, and it's measuring the inside diameter. Now I just need to read the calipers. So that's another example of them showing the exact same thing I showed you. Now to measure a step faces, if I want to measure how far this little ridge is from this bottom edge here, I would use step distance. So it shows you there. I can show you the same thing on this. I just push it against, and that measures the step. And then I read the calipers. And then last is depth of measuring faces. Most people forget about this one here. You can use this little rod at the bottom here to measure depth. And so you place it inside the hole of something you're trying to measure. Or in this case, if I want to see how tall this edge is, then I can push this down, and you can see the rod is going all the way to the bottom. So that will give me the same opening distance on my calipers, that this gap is actually the same as this height. So then I, again, just read my calipers. And so the next step is, how in the world do you read these things? So a standard inch dial caliper will measure slightly more than 6 inches, and this is the same thing. You'll see numbers on the top here. We're not going to use those. That's actually metric. Ours do not have the tenths. If you look at this 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 4, that's tenths of an inch. You don't really use tenths of an inch in your normal daily life, but when you're using Inventor, it's actually incredibly useful to use tenths of an inch. The tenths are not marked on this thing here. It just says 0, and then it says 1. So you have to read tenths on the dial. The blade scale again shows in 10 increments, so each one is 0.1 of an inch. That's your slider, that's your base, or your blade, sorry. The blade is the immovable portion, that's this chunk. The slider moves back and forth on it. The pointer points to the exact position for the numbers that you're going to read. So you can see that it's changing on this. And I know it doesn't really want to focus on this, but we should be able to get what we need to. That is your reference edge. So in this case, we are 0.7. So this one is actually a little bit more precise than ours is, than our dial calipers is, but they all read somewhat similar. And then here's the rack, and you can see that there are little teeth inside here. They don't put it on that little drawing, but there's little teeth inside here, and that's what causes the little gear inside here to turn this calipers. So let's show you how to read it. The dial is divided 100 times in this case. Now, in our dial, though, it's actually in hundredths of an inch, not thousandths of an inch. So this is a lot more precise dial. So we're going to actually move through the slide so I can show you how to use this one, and then I'll show you how to use ours. So in this case, they've opened it up, so it's past 1, so we know that our distance is 1. And the reference edge goes just past the 0.4, so it's 1.4. And then we start looking at the dial to see after that. So we have 1.4, and in this case, the pointer is pointing to 37. It's pointing down to 30. The 5 is in the middle. It's a longer dash, 6, 7. So 1.437, 1.437. So 1 inch, the 0.4, .037 is the next part. So we end up with 1.437. We cannot get that accurate in ours. We can only get to the nearest hundredth on ours. So here's another example of one. I'd like you to kind of take a look at this one before you, so maybe pause it and see if you can figure out what the number is. So moving on, I'll walk through it with you. Hopefully you got a chance to read that and figure out what it was. The question is, how wide is the block? It looks like it's 1.4. So we have 1 inch, another 0.4. We look to our dial, and it's dialed at 2. So it would be 0, 2. It's not 1.42, it's 1.402. So there we go, 1.402. So that between 0 and 10 here can be a little tricky. Same thing on this one. So I'm going to show you an example on this, and we'll see if we measured something that was this length here. You can see I'm just past the 1, so I have 1 inch, so I have 1, and then we look at the dial. And right now, we can see this, the dial is on 1.5. So we have 1.15, that's in hundredths of an inch, so 0.15 would be our answer. So our dial reads 1.15 inches. So that's how you read calipers. You're going to have to do this quite a bit when you're building this part later on. You are all going to be building and milling this block, and it's important to be able to know how to use the calipers so that when you're making your measurements, you get them all kind of in the right place.